Congratulations! We have an offer on your house. This video is going to go over the offer process and give you a little knowledge prior to our meeting to review your offer or offers so you can be better prepared to make an informed decision. So the first thing to remember when looking at your offers is that the offer price, while certainly is important, it's not the most important factor. So don't be tempted with a knee-jerk reaction to simply accept the highest offer. There are other considerations which we will briefly go over, such as if the buyer is asking for a closing cost credit or asking for extensive repairs, what type of loan they are getting. Is the buyer only pre-qualified for the loan or actually pre-approved? How much is their deposit and down payment? How long before they can close escrow? Are they going to ask for any personal property to be included in the sale? And how long are their contingencies? As you can see, there are a lot of factors. So let's start with the first one. Is the buyer asking for a closing cost credit? Sometimes the buyer does not have enough money in their bank to cover both the down payment and the closing costs. So they will ask the seller to pay for a portion of their closing costs. So if you have a full price offer at say $500,000, but the buyer is asking for a 3% credit for closing costs, that's $15,000. So your purchase price will still be $500,000, but you'll receive $15,000 less in closing because you gave it to the buyers, which in essence would be the same as receiving an offer of $485,000 with no closing cost credit. Next, let's talk about loans. What kind of loans is the buyer getting? Is it a conventional loan, an FHA loan, or even a VA loan, or a cash offer? Maybe you would think, why does it matter? In the end, the money is the same. They get a loan, and I get paid in escrow the amount that they purchased it for less my mortgage and selling expenses. Well, it does matter. Each loan has its own requirements, and I will advise you depending on which type of loan the buyer is getting. Let's quickly go over the three most common loans. The first is the conventional loan. This is the most lenient loan when it comes to a house condition. Buyers typically have to have a larger down payment, so banks are less worried about the condition of the house. The next loan, it's an FHA loan. Buyers typically only have to put down 3.5%, and it's a government-insured loan. So they may require assurance about the house's condition. They may require a termite report with a Section 1 clearance. So let's pause and talk about termite reports and Section 1 and Section 2. When you get a termite report done, the inspector is not just looking for termites. He is also looking for dry rot and fungus to any wood members. The report will list damaged areas and classify them as Section 1 or Section 2. Section 1 items are things that are already damaged with dry rot or fungus or active infestation of any kind of termite, whether it's subterranean or wood termites. Section 2 items are items that are not already damaged, but areas that have conditions that, if not corrected, will lead to being a Section 1 item. A perfect example of a Section 2 item is a kitchen faucet that is leaking under the sink, and the wood at the bottom of the cabinets is not damaged yet. But if the water leak doesn't get corrected, the wood will eventually rot and become a Section 1 item. So FHA typically is only concerned with Section 1 items. However, a VA loan will require both Section 1 and Section 2 items to be corrected, and the termite company will have to certify that all the repairs have been done. So when reviewing offers, we will need to take into consideration the condition of your home, what kind of loan the buyer is getting, and what types of repairs might need to be made, and how much money it may cost you. Speaking of loans, has the buyer been pre-qualified or pre-approved for their loan? And what's the difference? A pre-qualification letter simply means the buyer has spoken with a lender, verbally stated their income, their expenses, and based on that non-verified information, the lender runs some numbers and tells them what they are pre-qualified for. A pre-qual isn't even worth the paper it is written on. On the other hand, if the buyer has a pre-approval letter, or even better, an underwritten approval, then we know that the lender has taken the steps to verify their income, run their credit, and possibly even submitted their loan for underwriting, and that they are in fact qualified to purchase your home. That's not to say something couldn't pop up during the loan process and cause a hiccup, but a pre-approval is much better than a pre-qualification. Let's talk about contingencies. In a standard contract, there are 3 contingencies that every buyer has, unless they chose to waive them. They have an inspection contingency, an appraisal contingency, and a loan contingency. All contingency timeframes start from the date of acceptance of their offer. An inspection contingency is a period of time from when the contract gets accepted and when they are able to get any and all inspections they want to the house, to make sure they know the condition and to make sure they still want to move forward with the purchase. The most common inspections are a home inspection, termite inspection, and a roof inspection. Usually the inspection period for this contingency is about 10 to 17 days. Next is the appraisal contingency. The lender will hire an independent appraiser to come to your house, take photos for their report, look at the condition, then look for comparable sales in the neighborhood to come up with a value. The lender wants to ensure that they are not loaning the buyer more money than the house is worth. Once the appraisal comes back, if it comes in at the purchase value, then all is well. If it comes in lower, then we have a few options. We can either lower the purchase price to the appraised value. The buyer can come up with the difference. We can meet in the middle, with buyer coming up with part of the difference and the seller paying part of the difference, or the deal gets cancelled and everyone walks away. The last contingency is the loan contingency. This is when the lender gathers all the buyer's documents, verifying their employment, having the loan underwritten, and giving the buyer conditions of additional documents to provide in order to satisfy the lender. This contingency is usually 17 to 21 days. So at the end of each contingency, the buyer will need to remove their contingency or ask for an extension or cancel the contract due to something to do with one of the contingencies. The shorter the contingency timeframes, the less time we waste should they decide not to continue with the purchase. Once the buyer removes all contingencies, they are stating that they are moving forward with the purchase of the house. And should they back out or unable to complete the transaction after that, that is when they risk losing their deposit. Which leads us to our next topic. How much of a deposit is the buyer putting down? The larger the deposit, the better. Let's explore this one little bit. Say we are 30 days in contract. Buyer has removed all contingencies. We are supposed to close escrow in a week. You've already packed all your things, paid movers to move your things to another location, possibly already purchased or rented another home. And then the buyer's loan falls apart, or the buyer simply gets cold feet and cancels. Well, you have incurred some financial damages from that. In addition to the moving costs, the new housing costs, you now have to find a new buyer, and in the meantime, you still have to pay your mortgage. And thus, are entitled to collect part of or all that deposit. If the buyer only put $1,000 down as a deposit, this isn't going to cover very much of your loss. Per the contract, seller is entitled to either the amount of the deposit or 3% of the purchase price, whichever one is less. Now, if the buyer put down $5,000 into escrow, that will cover much of your loss. If a buyer has only a little skin in the game, they are more likely not to be as concerned if they cancel last minute. However, if they stand to lose $5,000 to $10,000, they will likely think twice before canceling. So the amount of deposit is very important. A couple of other items we will discuss is if the buyer's purchase of the property contingent upon them selling a house. Is the buyer asking for any of your personal property, such as washer, dryer, refrigerator, or any other items to be included with the sale? As you see, there is a lot more to the contract than just the purchase price. When we meet to go over your offer, we will discuss each of these items, and then you can make an informed decision as to what offer is best for you and your individual situation. As always, if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to me. I'm here to help and answer any questions you have.